And next we have the most lovely lady, Sutherland. Fee and I met back in 2010. We're on a 2-year spiritual leadership program together. And Fee's story that she is going to share with you next is a journey of, I would say, awakenings. Her credentials are that she has a degree in psychology. She is the co-director of the ISIS School of Holistic Health, and she dedicates her life to helping people be empowered by following their own inner wisdom. And this conversation is enlightening on so many levels, and I really hope you enjoy it. You will hear in Fee's voice that she sounds like and even looks like she's floating on a cloud with her feet firmly on the ground, taking very decisive and intuitive action that is aligned with her calling. So I really hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. And we have the very lovely Fee here, a precious friend of mine. And Fee, I would love to start with my meant for more question. Can you recall a time or an experience in your life where you've had that feeling, that kind of nudge or that ache or that niggle in you, or that really big boulder experience where you had this awareness that you were meant for more, that whatever you were doing wasn't working, or maybe you had a very gentle nudge? Is there an experience that you can share?
Yeah, I think, when you asked me that question, Lisa, the time that really came up for me, it wasn't a gentle nudge, I have to say. I was going to film. I loved films in those days, and I was just walking into the cinema as I normally did. And I sat, my friend chose the film. We sat, we watched the film, and I came out of that film absolutely discombobulated, I would say. My whole world had turned upside down, and I had no idea what had happened. I just felt completely different. My life had been going along, I wasn't feeling great. Do you know what I mean? But I just took it, I was like everyone else, I was just going along. But it was like this big shake-up just happened within the space of 2 hours. And I came out just feeling that everything had changed. Everything had changed. And I really didn't know what, it was like I couldn't really understand the process that had happened, because it was almost like too big, in a sense, for me to articulate it. So what happened, what I did, I went to that same film 10 times in total. I just kept going because it was my reference point. It was like, here, something has happened when I see this film. So it was like, tell me, show me. Let me understand what's going on. And what happened on the very last showing of the film, before it moved on to another city or whatever, I came out of the cinema absolutely knowing there was more to life, there was more to me than I ever thought, and that I was responsible for deciding and choosing the life that I made for myself. Up until that point, I just thought, everything just played out, and that you weren't responsible, or somehow your choices didn't matter, But absolutely after that, it was like, no, I am responsible for my life. The choices I make are really important, and that I am more than I think I am.
So I've got so many questions. I know one that people who are listening and watching will be asking is, what film was it?
I get asked that all the time.
And the other question is, when was it? And then the other question is, what did you then go away and do differently? What changed in life from what to what? So you can answer those in any order you like.
It happened in 1995, so a
Mhm.
long time ago. The film, I don't say, because it was my moment in time. It was a reference for me. It was
Mhm.
a meeting point of me and my soul. And those meeting points are so different and so unique for each person. And if I say the film, people will go away with an expectation.
Yeah, they'll want this bolt out of the blue.
Exactly.
So just to, whilst we're in that, and I've got the question in my mind, without saying the film, was it something logical that was in the film that made sense to you, that had this moment? Was it like an under the surface where, I don't know, I don't even know how to put it into words because I don't know if there are words. Can you help me work out what I'm asking?
Yeah, because it was what I was kind of like looking for as well, and understanding what really had impacted me. And what impacted me was one of the main characters, right? You thought her life was going to go along in this trajectory,
Yeah.
but she chose something completely different. She actually went with her heart rather than the logical mind or what was the obvious path to
Mm,
take. So I only know in hindsight it was that heart thing that really kind of like shook me,
yeah.
because I was doing everything with my mind and so
Yes.
logical, right?
Yes. Yes. I completely get that. Because we're kind of almost conditioned that way, aren't we?
Yeah,
That,
totally.
think with your head, don't let your heart rule your head, and all those kind of beliefs, and that actually have the wrong organ leading us. I always think that, well, I learnt this later in life, but I always think that the heart should be leading us, the brain has to work out, the mind has to work out how and what, do the translation and then the plan, and then we're in flow. That's my thoughts. What's yours?
I think what it's really through all the years and all the kind of explorations I've done on the personal path and on the spiritual path, what I see now is that if you like, we're split. We're split into two aspects of our mind, what we might call the enlightened mind and the conditioned mind.
Mhm.
Right? And the conditioned mind is the mind that we've learned. It's all the experiences we've had. It's all the social structures that have imposed their belief systems on us, that we've come into contact with in this earth planet. And this has created a separate identity, if you like, for us. What we call the conditioned mind, or the conditioning, the programming, if you like. And then that operates in the world. And our enlightened, wise mind stays behind that. And what the heart does, the heart engages the enlightened, wise mind, what we might call the wise self. And it's through that engagement that we bring our wise self more to the fore rather than the conditioned self. And this is what's happened in the process of me sort of starting that journey, that first awakening experience, and then going along for all these years.
And so how did it change your life then? How were you being before, and then what sort of things did it fundamentally change as a result of it?
I think the most fundamental thing that happened, and it happened instantly, it was like I came out of that last showing, I understood something at another level. I went to a cafe to sit down, have a coffee,
A stiff coffee, yeah.
and then I thought, and this image came into my head of this tennis player meditating. I watched a documentary about him. Yeah, I think his name was Stan Smith, and it was just before he was going to play in the Wimbledon final, I don't know, many years ago. In that documentary, he was meditating. And this picture came in my head about him meditating. And at the time I thought, oh, that's curious, but then done nothing with it. But it was like, boom, you have to learn to meditate. And that's what I did. I found a meditation class. I started meditating, and I've never stopped. So that changed me completely, because before I was totally, I would say, in the world, in the everyday world, didn't have a spiritual aspect at all to my life. And then within that time frame, everything changed in that. So it was like suddenly my focus was much more on my spiritual path. Not that I knew anything about that or what it meant, but it was like that became a focus point.
Yeah, you found the thing that felt right. It's like trying something on, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you find these practices that suit you, because not every practice suits everybody. Now, meditation's proven to. You can maybe tell us a little bit about the science part before we go on to other areas of your life. Because I want to know what job you were doing at the time as well. But first of all, just share what you know about the strengthening or the restructuring of the brain that meditation's proven to do.
You know, I'm going to say to you, I don't pay a lot of attention to that.
Mm.
I'll tell you. And it's just, we're all so different, right? We're all so different. And what I realize within myself is for me to come away from my mind and my thinking, it's really important that I don't get stuck in learning things
Mm.
or understanding too much knowledge. It's really important for me that this is an experiential journey. And meditation for me takes me into the experience of living life moment to moment. And that is my teacher. Having said that, I will say what the meditation does is it calms our mind, right? It takes us into deeper states of awareness where our mind just slows down a little bit. Yeah, and that's such a beauty about meditation. But also what meditation does, it connects us inside. This is so important, right? It connects us into our body. So we're in our body. We're connected to our heart center.
Mhm.
That can be a focal point as we meditate, because what we want to do really is that our spirit lives in our heart center. The truth of our being, right, lives in our heart center. So it's like this meditation, this tool allows us to connect into our heart center and into the truth of our being. Yeah. So we form that connection too with what we would call the wise self. And the wise self is the observer. It's that aspect of ourself that can watch, that can witness what we're doing, that can witness what's happening within ourselves without being totally connected to all the reactions of the conditioning. It can just be the observer, watching what we do, watching how we react to things, yeah, without getting caught up in it. And that's a huge tool, because that's where we start to grow our awareness, our self-awareness. You know, who are we really? And what are we doing? What are we thinking? What are we feeling? You know, our wise self can open those doors for us. And that's a huge area of us that the conditioning doesn't take us near,
Yeah. Yes, I
right?
can imagine. Have you ever had any experiences where you know that this connection to your heart, this connection to the meditating has I want to use the word saved your life, because I have this kind of theory that we get these moments of like a bump on the head, or I can't remember how you described it. It was, I know you said you came out feeling discombobulated, but I always think that these wake up moments, these moments that put us on a track, armors was something that is so necessary for what we don't yet know we need in the future. It's like we get, I'm going to say, this is going to sound really crude, but like it's like we get a toolkit that we think, I didn't know I needed this, but I'll trust it. And then in your future, you then see, oh, thank goodness I had that, because it in some way saved my being.
I think meditation,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'll tell you what happened on my second retreat, in a meditation retreat, because I went along to my first retreat and I thought, wow, this is amazing. It was 4 days, and I'd only been meditating for a couple of months, and the opportunity to do this 4-day retreat opened up, and I went along and I loved it. And then I thought, I've got to keep doing this. And then I went to my second meditation retreat and I didn't like it at all. I couldn't connect. I thought, you know, all these thoughts came up. Why am I doing this? What's the point in this? That I'm useless at this. I can't do this. You know, I'll just give this up. So that went on all Friday night. It went all day Saturday, and I'm sitting on Sunday morning, and it's the last big meditation before the retreat actually finishes, and I'm still not getting it. I'm like, no, I'll give it up. And that's what I'm sitting there thinking. And then, bang, the whole thing changed. My mind completely stilled, not a thought. All this golden colour came from nowhere. And I just felt I was surrounded by this golden colour. And I just sat in this bliss, Lisa. Total bliss. I have no idea how long for. I just knew I came out of the meditation because the facilitator brought us back, and I was in a completely different space. And I thought, I need to keep meditating. There's something here for me. Yeah. And it was. And what I realized after was I touched my divine self. Yeah. Now, I've never had that experience again in meditation after 30 years of meditating, but that really clinched it for me. And I would say meditation, if I really look back on it, has saved my sanity and it has saved my life, in so many different ways. I would not be where I am now without it. And, I said this recently to a group of people. It was like, there's no option for me other than meditating every morning. That's just what I do. And I don't think twice about it. And it sets me up for the day because it puts me in a very different space, a much more connected space, a gentler space for myself and for the world too, and also a much more wise space. I make better decisions from this space than when I'm in my conditioned mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say the difference is then? And can I just ask, how long do you meditate for each morning?
It varies. Well, over the years, it's varied a lot. I started off at 5 minutes. At one point, I was up to 4 hours. Now it's about 2.5 hours that I meditate. And my longest practice, I do various practices within that time. And my longest practice is for an hour and a half that I meditate. Yeah. And that just allows me to go so deep.
Yeah, and especially if you're connecting to your wisest self, it's like your way of being your best you, the you that you enjoy being, of you how you want to tread life. And yeah, what's it? What do you think what's the difference in how you would have been without it and how you are with it, do you think?
Oh, I want to say something else as well, just to kind of expand on that, because when you're in that meditation space, you're connected to your wise self, good insights come up. So
Mm,
I have a little notepad beside me, and I will take little notes because it's like in that moment, it's like, that's a really good idea, because this is what happens. We get more closer. The veil between ourself and our enlightened self, our spirit, becomes much thinner. So we hear that inner voice much more easily, when we're in the meditation space. And we get to know that voice. And that voice doesn't talk as much as the conditioned voice, right? It's a lot quieter. So it's like we need to quieten down in order to hear that voice. So in meditation, when I hear that voice and when something comes up that I would never have thought of, then I know it's the wise self too, because my conditioned mind wouldn't have thought of that. Then I take note, I write it down. And then during the day, I know to action it,
yeah.
because it's both, right? You need that where you hear your inner voice, you listen to it, but then you have to action it as well, because otherwise nothing will change.
Exactly. Did you ever get glimpses into your own future? That might be the same as what you're currently saying. I guess I'm asking, do you uh, yeah, get insights into what's happening, what's going to happen for you? Or is that the same as being shown an opportunity that you then take some action towards?
Yeah, I think more like that. I don't get, having said that, I have sometimes got inklings into the future or what's going to happen or something like that. But that's not often. Most of the time, it's just like, this is what you need to do in order for something else to happen, if you like. So it's like, I'll get that insight, and that's why I have the notepad, because I know I need to action this, and this is what what I learned over the years is the heart teaches you step by step. It doesn't give you the full picture. It gives you the next step, right? Where the mind wants outcomes, it wants the fixed, it wants to know everything.
Yeah, it
Right?
wants the certainty, doesn't it? So it knows
Yes.
it can keep us safe. Yeah.
Yeah. But the heart doesn't do that at all. The heart just gives you, this is the next step you have to do. And then it waits to see if you do it.
Yeah. I also think with that as well, I think if the heart shoulders showed us our whole path too much at once, we're not yet acclimatized to know that that's possible. And in some way we start shutting it down. So I think that it shows us little chapters. And then, right, now that you're stepping into that, here's the next chapter and here's the next chapter. That's just my Lisa way of thinking around it. What's your thoughts?
I think that's a really good way of doing it. I'm thinking about it, Lisa, because it's like the other thing is we would get too overwhelmed.
Exactly. That's the word that was in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it's an adventure for the heart. And also when the heart speaks to us, most of the time it's challenging, right? Because it's not what the conditioned mind would choose. And when we don't choose what the conditioning wants, that takes us out of the comfort zone.
And I just want to say this whilst it's on my mind, because I've got a menopausal brain at the moment. So it's made me have a conversation Tourette's where, where I have to dive in when I think, might have forgotten it again now. And yes, I know what I was going to say. And so with the mind, we could be in patterns of being more used to sabotage, more used to chaos, more used to pain, more used to discomfort. So some of our patterning, depending on our experiences, our childhood and other aspects, our mind could keep creating those experiences because it's more used to it, because it's used to that vibration, it's also used to that rhythm, it's used to those outcomes, and it's also in alignment with our mind's idea of what we're worth, our self-worth. And I guess on the other hand, the heart is just about pure love.
Yeah.
So I know that you have uh, is it a degree in psychology? Yeah, so can you just share a bit about how far off track I am with the mind repeating patterns and the heart? If we tune into the heart, the love part, if where from your point of view.
Yeah, it's not quite as separate as that. The conditioning has created lots of patterns, lots of behaviors, right? Based on what's happened to us, based on what we've been taught, and also what we've absorbed. And the conditioned mind has its own way of trying to keep us safe, if you like, and protected, right? And we need that until we get wise,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, because those ways are actually limiting. What the conditioning mind does is it limits us. It keeps us, if you like, on the back foot for a lot of people, or it keeps a lot of people on too far in the front foot, not in a healthy way. So yes, we can end up with all these patterns of self-sabotaging, of really holding ourselves back when we should be speaking up,
Mm.
of saying yes, 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 when we should be saying no.
Mm-hmm.
But the heart is very different. The heart is everything. It's not just pure love. It's pure wisdom too. So it knows when to say yes and it knows when to say no, right? And both are an option for the heart, whereas only one might be an option for the mind. So it's like with the heart, everything is possible. But with the conditioning, it's like that's not at all possible, right?
Yeah.
You can only operate within this little parameter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where it's like now you're opening up to possibilities with the heart. And that's where the adventure starts with you in life. Because it's like, I don't know my future. right? My mind might think it knows it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But my heart is leading me on a completely different path,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's really in tune with my soul and what my soul is here to do. And that is what really speaks to me. And that's what guides me, because it's like my compass point. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I see and hear so many people because we've got so much external stimulus, haven't we? What's it called? Stimuli. Which one is it?
Stimuli.
Is it stimuli? Thank you. I know there were people shouting out which one it was. We've got so much external things pulling us and shouting at us and navigating us. We've got algorithms, we've got TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We've got emails pinging in morning, noon, and night. We've got tech. We're so accessible now that there are so many magnets pulling us externally that I think quite often we can fall into a trap of setting goals that are around what we've seen our friends do or other people do, that are their goals, that we feel like we should be doing something like they're doing, and I think that takes us completely off our own path, that we should be looking inward. And that meditation where you quieten the mind and create that space in stillness, that which I can understand why people talk about going out into nature. I love it when I'm on the top of a mountain or going walking, and
Mm.
it's the whole thing. It's the vastness of 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 nature. It's the vastness of space. It's the vastness of possibility that it feels like to me, and that all that's expected of you is to put one foot in front of the other. And I know that when I took 10 ladies to Base Camp Everest, I was able to leave so much pain behind because I was almost in 18 days of meditation, because all we could think about was where we were placing each foot. There wasn't space for any other kind of thought. If you thought about anything that was uncomfortable or anything that was negative, it made the body heavier. So you kind of wanted to avoid adding any more heaviness to an already strenuous trek and altitude, and we're tired. You had to be really mindful what you carried in your mind. And so it kind of created, I think lots of people said as well, that had been the first time in years that the only thing they thought about was putting one foot in front of the other, and how liberating it was and how freeing it was to be the only thing that the mind needed to think about. And so, yes, I guess what I'm talking about there is us setting goals or experiences in our life that come from what our heart wants, which sounds woolly to some people, but why would we set goals and experiences around what we see other people doing? Because that's their experiences, isn't it? So I want to ask you a question, because I remember years ago, I don't know how many years ago, it might be 2016, that we did a little You, Me and Fatula. I decided I'd be David Bailey, the video version. We were doing videos for your website, and I remember you sharing on video about an experience you had in Peru that to me just sounded just incredible. Just, if I didn't know you, I'd think that's unbelievable. So, could you just share a little bit, or as much as you like, about that experience? Because well, I'd never heard anything like it. I'd never met anybody who'd had an experience like it. And I think there's so much hope in your story.
Can I take you back a little bit just before that? Because what actually happened when I was 50 in 2007, I made the decision to follow my heart, right? I made the decision to put, if you like, both feet on the spiritual path, because I knew part of me was still dissatisfied. Even though I'd been meditating all these years, there was a part of me wasn't satisfied inwardly. I was not at ease. Outwardly, my life looked good, right? And I knew inwardly it was because I wasn't making this full commitment to follow my heart to follow my spiritual path. So when the day I was 50, I looked in the mirror and I made the commitment to myself to follow my heart, no matter what happened and wherever it took me, right? And that
Wow.
was huge, right? You can imagine that was
Got
another huge.
goosebumps, and I don't even, well, I don't know where your story's going right now, but I've got, say that again, because I just got goosebumps that they're involuntary. So you made the commitment.
I made the commitment to follow my heart, no matter where it took me and no matter what happened.
That is the ultimate self-trust.
Yeah. And I did it from a place of not really knowing what that meant, actually, Lisa, right? I just knew I had to do it. And immediately these situations in my life came up and said, okay, you want to follow your heart. So what are you going to do about this? And what are you going to do about that? Because it's like those things are not good in your life. And these things were things I was avoiding, right? And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to face them. And I did.
I love this. Can I just say why? Because I'm a massive, you're being able to articulate things that I haven't really been able to articulate, because I'm a massive believer in following your heart, but it's always felt quite, I guess, abstract or woolly even when I've said it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the work that I love doing with people about what does your heart truly desire. And it, maybe the sentence itself maybe sounds a little bit less connected, but what I'm hearing is, and because I know you a little bit, I know you live your life this way. So I just wanted to say that what you're saying, I totally resonate with. And you're being able to articulate it, if I let you carry on, articulate it in a way that I feel like I'm going on a journey with you. So I'm buckling up.
Yeah. So it was like there was no dodging issues anymore, right? It was like if you really want to walk your path, you're going to actually have to be really honest with yourself, and you're really going to have to straighten up with how you live your life and how you think and how you interact with people. So it was like a huge wake-up call. Huge. But you know, it was like I did it. And those two things, it was like I really faced them. And when I faced them knowing that I had my heart behind me.
Mm.
And it was the right thing for me to do. Even though they were scary, it was like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I can do this. And I did it. And that just kind of like blew me away, because it was like that gave me the courage now. It was like, if I can do those things, I can do anything now. And it was like, so now I'm on this adventure, right? So what happens is I have this sense to go to Machu Picchu. I just know I have to go to Machu Picchu from nowhere. And I find a pilgrimage that's going to Machu Picchu. And so I sign up. Before I really think about it, I sign up and I go to Peru. Yeah. And we're in Peru and it's amazing. And I'm going along and I'm loving it. I'm not really understanding all that's happening. You know, I'm in this really big group, but I can connect with a couple of people and things like that. But what actually happens is that we get to Machu Picchu, I have my day in Machu Picchu, and it's like, you know, we're one of the first buses there. I get on the very last bus, right? I remember stepping onto the bus, and I don't remember anything else, right? There's 2 days in the process, but what happens in those 2 days, I don't really have any idea of still. No memories coming back, because what actually happened was I became very ill. After Machu Picchu, I got very ill and I actually went into a coma. And I was in the coma in intensive care. Well, I was in intensive care for a week. I was in the coma for 4 days. I remember waking up, being in the hospital, and I remember looking out and I just saw all those clouds in the sky and out the hospital window. And I was just looking at them and I had no thoughts, Lisa. Not a single thought, right? People came, people went, people washed me, people took me to the loo, no thought. no thought. I was ecstatic. I was just in this bliss. I had no idea. What I know now is that I'd awoken in the enlightened mind, right? The meditator's dream, not a thought. Yeah. And then people came in who I recognized. And I had no idea that people would know where I was. And they came in and I was just like totally joyful. And they started to speak to me and I couldn't answer them because what had actually happened, I'd woken up like a newborn child. So I had no language skills, right? I was just like this child who was rebirthed
Wow.
in this enlightened state with no language skills at all. So I just smiled and people were asking me questions and I just smiled, you know. And then the doctor came, I think a while later, and he asked me if I could speak and I thought, oh yes, I can speak. Because suddenly I thought, oh yeah, you can speak. You do know how to speak. So he asked me some questions. He asked me where I was. I said, I think I'm in Peru. Because because people had said to me, you're in Peru, the friends had said to me. So I think I'm in Peru. And he said, what year is it? I said, well, I have no idea. He said, how old are you? I said, oh, I have no idea. He said, do you know your name? I said, oh yes, I know my name. And I'm from Scotland. I knew that. And then that was it. That's all I knew, So, and for the rest of that time that was in Peru, I was still in Peru for another few days before I flew home. Slowly, some language started to come back to me, but I couldn't remember the names of things. So I would just point to things. And I couldn't really read the menu, when we went out to get some food. So I would just order what the person in front of me ordered. I would just do that just to make it easy for myself. Yeah.
And what did they say had caused the coma?
They think it was a reaction to the altitude.
Blimey.
Yeah, that's what they think it was.
Yeah.
So it was like I got very sick, very dehydrated when we had done some trekking.
Yeah.
I just managed to make it to Machu Picchu, but then the after effects of that had taken me out. Yeah.
What then followed for you then? Because that sounds like profound, and also was the feeling that you had the same feeling that you had on that retreat where you weren't getting it and then suddenly you got this bliss golden state? Was it the same feeling as well as that, or even bigger?
It was
It's
bigger.
got to be bigger.
It was much, much bigger. And also it lasted all the time, right? Because it was like I was just in that state all the time. Yeah, I was in that state with other people, with my family, with my friends when I came home. And I was in this state of absolute love, peace, and joy. And I radiated that out, right? And when people came towards me, they changed. I could feel it and they could feel it. And they told me that in that my vibration, right, that was just radiating love, they could feel different. And people started to have these experiences, I'm going to say, right? Where they just felt more present, more open to themselves, and there was so much joy. So that vibration was impacting on others. And I had so much joy because I had to go back to work. I couldn't remember what I did, but people were telling me what I was doing, what my
What did you
job
do?
was.
What job were you going back to? Just so we can picture it. This angel floating in. Help us put a picture together of what your job was.
I actually worked in a stress centre. I was the coordinator, right? I had a team of 11 therapists and I was the manager of that team. Yeah.
So paint the scene then. So you go back to work, but you couldn't remember what you did. Is
No,
that the words you just said?
yeah, I couldn't
Right.
remember. So I had, the person who was my right-hand person for the admin. So she re-taught me what my job was, what I had to do. And I remember the first team meeting we were in, she said, now you've got to set an agenda and these are the things that we should talk about. So I kind of just put them together in a little page. We went into the team meeting. And then it was like I was just staring at everybody, because I forgot that I was supposed to follow the agenda. And he's going, follow the agenda, Fee, follow the. And I'm like, all right, okay. So I look at the agenda, but I can't go 1, 2, 3, 4. I just go all over the place with the agenda. So, and I just think the whole thing's so funny, following an agenda. So I just burst out laughing all the time too. So it's like, it's just what we think and then what the heart truly thinks about, our systems and things is so different.
What do you think happened in that period in Peru? What happened, do you think that, I haven't got a different question than what do you think happened?
What I know happened now,
Oh, I love that. Never mind
right?
think. What I
Yeah.
know.
What I know happened, and I got this because of my colleague Fatula, who's very psychic. And she told me this, and this was like years after, though. Years after. Yeah. What I know is that my spirit left. When in the coma, my spirit left and it went far out, almost like it was a union with the infinite, with source, with the one being, whatever you want to do. I joined with that, infinite spirit. And I do have one memory, only one memory of what happened in the near-death experience was I was in this, I'm going to call it a meeting.
Mhm.
And I was surrounded by all these light beings. I knew there was 9 of them. Somehow I knew there was 9. And everyone was just kind of sitting. Although there were light beings, it was just light. There was just kind of like blobs of light, if you like. And I was there in the semicircle of them. And I was a radiant being too. We were all radiant beings. There was no difference. And I knew that too. There's no difference between us and all the enlightened beings who are in spirit. So when I came back with an inner knowing of who I am. And I carry that, right? But what happened when I came back was because I was still in spirit, I wasn't fully integrated into my body. My whole body was starting to fragment. And I was starting to fragment as well. Emotionally, I was destable. I would burst into tears. I would burst out laughing at inappropriate moments, really, and I knew I needed help to integrate back into my body. And when I was in Peru on that pilgrimage, I met this woman called Fetula Dreamy, who's now my colleague. We sat together on the bus on the very first trip that we did. We got on like a house of fire. We both lived in Glasgow. So when I came back, Fatula rang me up and said, how are you doing, Fee? And I said, I'm okay, but I need help.
Mm.
I need help to integrate back into my body. And she said, I can help you. And that's what happened. And that was a godsend, right?
Literally.
Because without that, I would have actually lost my mind,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Well, it sounds like you did. I mean that I don't
Yeah.
mean that in a you've gone mad, but like it was parked whilst you were just this light, that having to
Yeah.
relearn how to read and relearn what year it is. It sounds like losing your mind has been actually a brilliant part of this journey is the parking and the losing, the conditioning and the so hang on, I've got lots of questions, I think. For those that are listening and watching right now, Fatula did a conversation with me already, and you'll find her conversation Following the Soul's Path on this channel, and so you can see more of what Fetula does, and then you can imagine how Fetula helped Fee get back into her body and reality. And do you think I can complete
And back into the conditioned mind too, because I came back into the conditioning mind, right? Because the enlightened mind, I couldn't hold that.
yeah,
So what I had to do was I had to integrate back into the body, which was conditioned, the mind, which was conditioned, right? And it took me 6 months of energy work with Fetula to do that, because it had to be so slow. I had to integrate really slowly.
gentle.
Yeah, gently. Yeah, in order to do that. But as that was happening, I was watching the whole process, right? I was aware of the whole process. I was aware of what things were going, the aspects of the expansion that were going and the aspects of the conditioning that were starting to come back in again and the limitations that were starting to come in, right?
You could feel which ones were coming back in.
I could feel which fears were coming back in, right? Which behavior patterns were coming back in, right? And I couldn't stop it. I didn't want to stop it. I needed that to happen. But I was more detached than I had been in the past, right? And I didn't fully come back into the conditioned self that I had been, right? Some of the enlightened state remained.
Well, we can feel it. I think anybody listening and watching right now will feel like they've been sat on a cloud listening to this lightness. You can absolutely feel it, Fee.
But that's also because I've done so much work. That happened in 2010, Lisa. I've done so much work since then.
Yeah,
So much personal work, so much meditation and spiritual ceremonies, right? Because what I really realized, I want to get back into that state, but I want to do it through my body this time,
yes.
through my heart, not to go out, right?
Do you think you died in Peru?
Yes.
Do you think your heart stopped beating?
I don't know if my heart stopped beating. I don't know what stage I would have died if they hadn't got me into intensive care. Right? I would have. I know that. So at what stage I went into intensive care, was I breathing or not breathing, or was my heart stopped? I don't know. But what I do know is without that, I would have died. Yeah. And then once you're in your coma, most of you's gone. Most of your spirit's gone,
Do you think that is for everybody or just for your situation when they're in a coma?
I think everyone's experience with everything is so different. It's
Yeah.
so unique, because people come back from near-death experience and, having gone through the death process, and they can tell you the death process, right? I know nothing about that. The only image I had is those, 9 enlightened beings. I couldn't tell you anything that happened other than that, but
It's,
having
sorry.
But but my gift was to experience the enlightened state afterwards.
It's just, I don't know the words. And I think for quite a lot of that experience, we don't have words for them, which is why I'm clutching at finding a word, and it just isn't there. I remember, now I can't remember if it was you I was listening to, earwig into a conversation, because Fee and I have been on a 2-year spiritual leadership course together as well. Do you remember that, Phoenix? That's how
Mhm.
I know you. And I remember listening to you. I was fascinated listening to you chatting in the coffee room. And we were, I don't know, I think this might be with somebody else's conversation, but they were saying, because I do remember a conversation that I was listening to, which was about walk-ins, and we were talking about Byron Katie. And I remember learning so much about that just by listening to that conversation with you. But the bit that I'm interested in your thoughts of is, and I can't remember who told me about it, was that there's a book called Remembering, and that, if I'm remembering this correctly, and I could be absolutely wrong with this, because it was such a long 2010, I think, that I heard that somebody was telling me this. But the book is about these souls that are in heaven, and they say to each other in heaven, our task for the next lifetime, or our challenge for the next lifetime, is for us to remember who we are to each other in heaven. Does that ring a bell, that book?
No.
No. So I guess the principle is that we have, when we're in heaven, we have soulmates that don't have a gender, but that we then make agreements with each other in heaven that in the next lifetime, I want to learn this, or overcome this, or heal this. And each of the souls say, yeah, I'll help you with that. And I like this story because it makes me have a belief about my childhood that is actually, I embrace it now, because I feel like I orchestrated, my mum, my dad, my stepmom, my stepsister, my whole experience already from heaven. And this is it just playing out in a way that I probably wouldn't agree to if we'd sketched a plan out up there. You're going to go through the University of Life, Lisa. It's going to be really challenging, but you have asked for it. And it kind of reminds me of a little interview I heard with Wayne Dyer, that he says that he remembers having a conversation with God, and God saying, right, what do you want to achieve in the next lifetime? And Wayne Dyer says, I want to teach people how to be self-reliant, completely self-reliant. And God says, and what else? And he said, that's it. I just want to teach people how to be completely self-reliant. And God said, and that's all you want to do in your whole lifetime, is that? And he went, and Wayne Dyer said, yes. Then God said, right, we'll just pop you straight into an orphanage. And so I guess what I'm going to ask you in that, I don't know, paragraph, is when you were in the coma and you were with the enlightened beings, I guess from my perspective, I'm thinking, oh, I wonder if they were Fee's soulmates. Maybe like having a chat with you that we don't know consciously, but having a chat with you saying, right, have you remembered your mission? Because we're going to like really put the big guns onto it now. What does any of what I say in those stories relate to your experience at all?
I mean, it does relate to my experience in terms of my life down here. I feel that, there are soul agreements, definitely. There's people that I've met, where you just meet people and you instantly feel like you know them. So I totally resonate with that. And I really do think, up there we do make our choices about our life and about who we're going to meet. I really believe that as well. But when I was up there, I didn't have that sense. It was Fetula told me afterwards, because I didn't know this, but there's a council, what's called the Council of Nine, who are in charge of the Earth realm as well. They're one of the councils in charge of the Earth realm. So this was the Council of Nine that I met. And what we discussed, I have no idea, Lisa,
Well, you're getting on with it.
And I don't know whether my life got realigned at that point. Part of me thinks it might have happened, or whether it was I was already on a mission, if you like, and it was just a confirmation of that. I don't know. But I do know, again, it was like my life completely changed as a result of that experience. I would say that, having the cinema experience,
Yes.
that was a major change.
Yeah.
Having the deciding to follow my heart, that was a major change. And then having this coma experience, that was my third major change. Because out of that, Fetula and I started to work together. We started to travel together, go on pilgrimages together, and then eventually we worked together. And we now still work together
And
on
you're
Nice
such
to
a good
School.
team. You are
Yeah,
such a good team. There's so much love and efficiency. Yeah, you're such a good
yeah,
team. There is so much love between you, and it's really symbiotic, and it looks like it was always meant to be.
yeah.
And you're so good for each other as well. And you kind of look at that. I was chatting with Dr. Darren Stevens, and he calls it joining the dots up, the timeline of dots. And you kind of look at that back in the cinema. You know, if you'd have had the Peru experience, that'd have been way too much.
Yeah.
If you hadn't have had the cinema experience and that kind of, almost like that experience of coming to terms with it on your own terms. Like you chose to go back to the cinema 10 times
Hmm.
to get, how do I feel discombobulated. I feel like my whole life's been in question in some way. And now I need to make sense of how do I, how does this practically play out in my life? I think play out sounds a bit belittling it, but how does it become a reality? And I just think when you just think about the gifts that some people may not have seen it as profoundly. Mind you, you were so altered after it, so profound.
Yeah, I don't think I had a choice.
Yeah,
Y- y- I couldn't not undo that
yeah.
experience.
You kind of almost imagine that the infinite and the council are sat right saying, right, somebody get fee. I don't care what she's doing. Make it plausible. Give her a reason to everybody else. Yeah, altitude sickness, that'll do. Let's just take her out of there for now and just super boost her.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it was a huge gift. I know it freaked a lot of my friends out and my parents, you can imagine, when I came back and I was,
This angel.
well, I couldn't remember anything when I came back. So I could remember them, but
Yeah.
lots of other things I couldn't. And I'd lost a lot of weight, even though I'd only been in the coma a week. I'd lost a lot of weight in that time frame, and so I didn't look great, So it did kind of freak people out, and because I was in such a different space, I wasn't me anymore. So people were like, wow, they were like, what's going on? But I just saw it as a huge gift. I just saw it as this huge gift. And even the coming back, the integration was another huge gift. And then it was like, I just know what I have to do now. I have to awaken. I have to awaken. That's my job. And it doesn't matter if I awaken or not. I'm on the path. Does that make sense,
Yeah,
Lisa?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and because I'm doing what I feel I'm here to do, both inwardly as an awakening, but also my outward job, which is to help people, through the ISIS School of Holistic Health with Fetula. I feel that everything is lined up. It's taken a huge pressure off me, right? I don't have the, set a goal here, or what's your plan for the next 5 years, or I am walking my path. That's it. It's like,
that's the goal.
yeah, just do the next step.
Yeah,
Exactly what you said,
yeah,
right? Because it's like live in the moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because if I live fully in the moment, then the next step I take will be exactly right.
Well, I'm also blown away at how you sat on the bus next to Fatula. Because if you hadn't, I'm pretty sure she'd have called you anyway. But if you wouldn't have understood her the way that you did through sitting with her to know to ask her for
But
help.
also we spent the whole of the day in Machu Picchu together.
Right,
And I
right.
got on the bus with her at the
Yeah,
end,
yeah.
right? Too. So there was a significance there, that I can look back and see now. Yeah.
Fee, I've had so many goosebump moments with you. What, just in to wrap up, because we have been over an hour and it feels like 5 minutes. I
Well,
think you made time stand still. What would you say to anybody that is having that niggle or that nudge or that kind of awareness that they know they're meant for more, that in some way their life has run its course as it is? What would, from your perspective and your viewpoint, what tip or bit of wisdom would you say?
what I would say is for them just to sit with themselves, to give them that moment, to connect into that part of them that knows, right? That part that knows, because there is that part within us that knows what we need to do beyond the condition. Really connect into that part so they really acknowledge that part, invite that part into their life and to guide them, and then have the courage
Mm,
just to take that next step.
yeah,
You can do it, I would
yeah.
say to them. You can do it. And it's only the next step you need to take. Yeah.
It's so good. That is so good. There's a few things in there. First of all, it takes courage to sit with that part. You're so right. Have the courage to be quiet with it, to sit with it, to trust it, to bring it. And then the only promise you need to make to yourself is, I'm going to take this next step, as though they're on a pilgrimage or a mountain
Yeah.
walk. It's like, just take the next step and the next. We don't need to have run it all to come back to where we are, to know that we can run it all or
Yeah.
walk it all. I've so enjoyed. It's been such a moving conversation and such a journey, and such we can
Mhm.
feel, and I say we because I absolutely know anybody watching and listening will have felt the serenity and the angelic feeling from you. And I think everybody will feel like they're now able to drift nicely into the rest of their day or evening. Thank you so much, Fee,
Thank you,
for
Lisa.
sharing so openly and sincerely with us. I think I'm going to, once we've finished recording, I'm going to so enjoy listening to this from a point of view of being in it rather than in some way facilitating it. I'm going to enjoy now being the observer. So thank you
Mm.
so much, lovely. I so appreciate you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for the opportunity. I mean, it's a gift for me to speak about it too, about my experience as well. I'm so passionate about people really empowering themselves to walk their path. Yeah. Because it's like, this is what the world needs. It needs more of us, right? Walking our own path
Yes.
and bringing our own heart, our own wisdom, our own love and light into this world. That's what we need.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm going to do more meditating in the morning, and starting the way you did with 5 minutes. That's that. You only need to take the next step.
Yeah.
But, the way that you've described it has meant that why would we not create space to listen to or not listen, or to just be, but to notice what we
Mhm.
really feel?
Yeah. This is a journey of self-honoring,
Yeah.
a journey of self-respect,
Mm,
right? Where we take the focus from the external, like you said, so many distractions, right? We take the focus away from that and we bring it in.
mm.
We bring it into the truth of who we are. Yeah. And the beauty.
Yes. And it's not self-indulgent, it's just
No,
self-honoring, and that they're completely different things.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
Thank you so much.
thank you, darling.
Thank you. Thank you.